Welcome, everyone. So good to see you. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys and meditate and connect with you all. I hope you're enjoying the experience so far. I see some new faces or newer faces, so know that I see you, and I'll be the person to talk to after the gathering. Right, I'm gonna do some screen share. The PowerPoint is useful in conveying some of my thoughts, especially because I can ramble. But know that you don't have to stare at the screen if that is not what you're called to. We look at screen way too much most of the time anyway. So give me one quick second as I share the screen. Right. So tonight's title is Meet Mindful Friends, sharing our stories on how we got here and why we meditate at DMC. And that would be the theme of my talk. And I will talk about why I'm providing this space, and I hope this resonates with you as I create this space for connection and for so to introduce myself, especially for those of you who do not know me very well, I'm honored to be serving the role of center director since 2022. I consider myself to be relatively new, considering that the organization started in 2006. Yeah, and Michael's been carrying a lot of weight, a lot of volunteers, been seeing a lot of history, and I'm glad you're joining us today as this continuation of our beautiful community. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Thich Nhat Hanh or Plum Village tradition, you'll see photos of Thich Nhat Hanh in various spaces. And our core gatherings are inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching and Plum Village tradition. Feel free to ask me questions after the gathering. And Brother Chising, another photo that you will see around the center, he's the founder of the Dallas Meditation Center. And I refer to him again and again, even though he passed from illness, because the spirit he brought to the center really created the culture of the center to be interfaith, secular friendly, and creativity oriented. So in that honoring of his spirit and the culture he created, I honor him by mentioning him. And I hope you already feel the values we create at the center, but just to reiterate, we value inclusivity. You'll see interfaith flag above the door. You'll see pride flags everywhere. We also honor generosity. If you weren't sure about how to navigate the donation process, our suggested donation is 20, but we always make a point of saying that donate what you can based on your financial health, as our organization's mission is to create space for people to come together and meditate, regardless of their financial health or any other barriers that may come into place. And thank you to monthly donors and volunteers who offer their generosity. This is a space that's only possible thanks to your generosity. And we also honor creativity. Stay tuned for various events such as drawing events and art making events. Follow our social media, if I may say so. But tonight's talk will especially emphasize our value of heart-to-heart connection. We host a lot of conversation events and connection events because this is time to come together truly and to see how far we can go in our heart-to-heart connection. I'll unpack more of that, what I mean by that. But we host various events, including Death Cafe or conversation events, where we talk about our human experience. We are, participating in this practice of mindfulness. But to me, what comes first always is lived experience and how do we, in a sustainable way, add more mindfulness, shine the light of mindfulness in a way that is doable and helps us. So in that spirit, connection to me is mindfulness practice. So that's some of the introduction of the center, especially for those of you who are newer to this space. Getting back to the theme of the talk today. So storytelling. Why storytelling? Why at the meditation center? Part of it is informed by my past experience as a creative writing instructor. That many years I've led creative writing circles where people tell their stories. And I was honored to witness what kind of power there is in storytelling. And I'd also briefly like to say, Willie sitting over there, our conversation, sorry, that's um, everybody's attention going to your direction is intense. It's also inspired by our conversation about storytelling as a powerful way of facilitating connection. A quick picture of me organizing some storytelling events as part of social activism. So before we jump into telling each other our stories and connect, if we are willing, I wanted to touch on power of storytelling. I found this quote that I really liked. The quote goes, "The flood is the news, but Noah is the story." So if people are aware of Noah's Ark story, the flood and how Noah navigated the flood, how do we relate to that story of disaster, the story of everything falling apart and trying to salvage as much as possible? What helps you to feel the magnitude of the flood? FEMA ask preliminary damage assessment in financial report. I don't think that helps me to feel the flood, feel the magnitude of disaster, feel the challenge the entire world faced, at least in that worldview of Bible. Facts and figures are useful, absolutely. They're useful resources, but they're something that only stories can make possible. Because personal stories in this complete picture resonates with people, and on the emotional level, in the presence level, and it facilitates heart-to-heart connection. And only from the space of heart-to-heart connection and care, there can be action, there can be planning, there can be imagining. So I will briefly touch on what I mean by that is that I've led some storytelling events where people who are affected by social injustice coming to tell their life story on the stage that I've shown before. And the idea was that the social injustice wasn't just an abstract idea. It's not just failure of system or policy, but rather this is how people are experiencing it. And in that, by telling the stories, these people were invited to the event, they were connecting to one another, but the audience members who were not affected by the social injustice were relating to the person on the stage, even if they're not affected, even if um, they do not know the person. Personal story has that power of human as social creature who loves to connect and relate when the space is right. And if I may say so, Dallas Meditation Center community is a beautiful space. Everyone who kind of walks through that threshold tends to be safe people, compassionate people, and I always make sure to hold the space in a way that people can feel safe. So in that, telling personal story in the safe and kind community can help anyone to reflect on their life in a big picture kind of way. And post meditation is a great space for it too. So sometimes it helps you to see your life in a big bird's eye view kind of way. Um, and in this context, I've seen a lot of beautiful, authentic connection happening. And that helps the speaker to really look at their life in this new light, but also help people to connect to one another. And that's what I'm hoping happens today. Yeah, we don't just meditate here together. Compassion, the word that keeps showing up in your program, that is what we are working to cultivate. And compassion sometimes might seem like a big word, spiritual word. Um, so what I would like to use, the word, simpler use word that I like to use is care. Um, we grow to care because we come together, meditate together, and perhaps tell each other our stories. And there is power of community when we care just because we meditate together, we learn a little bit about one another. And that sense of community, that sense of you belong somewhere is needed with everything unfolding in the world at large. And the sense of safety and collective care is what I'm hoping that we can all experiment with together. Yeah, so, and I believe the power of collective care can propagate beyond this room. When the weather's beautiful, we have lower attendance. That's supernatural. But I do believe that you're connected to your different community, your close ones, and this practice of relating deeply, you can bring it out into the world with your other communities, your loved ones, and this is a practice. For Tuesday evening group, I've given a talk on social vocation and power and privilege because I believe that being aware of how people can be vulnerable or empowered can be a mindfulness practice, especially in this day and age. And the beauty of Dallas Meditation Center, thanks to our generosity mission, where people can just show up without like worrying about how much they have to donate, is that people of various life paths come together. I've never seen a community like this. People of different level of education, socioeconomic status, abilities, they come together, and I think it's an excellent opportunity to meet people who are different from us. And hope we can explore that together. In discussing why I translated the novel Blood Sisters, published by Deep Ellum Press in Dallas, it's a book, it's a Korean novel on student protests. And during the interview, I have said that this is time to come together. This is time to relate to one another and support each other beyond the borders, beyond the differences. And we have the capacity to do so, especially supported by mindful, deep listening and practice of being with one another with full presence. So this is my vision as a center director, artist, and a fellow human. Lastly, on DMC level, I'd like to think that this can bring our mission into practice, our mission of mindful living for all. We don't assume where you're coming from, why you meditate. We aim to create space for you. We don't just assume that you practice mindfulness to reach enlightenment, as some Buddhism might talk, or other reasons. So here, know that our aim is to, as a community, we want to learn about you, if you're willing to share. So what to expect for the rest of tonight is that I will share just my story in the spirit of modeling. It's, you know, icebreaker. It's easier when somebody tells their story before being invited to tell their stories. So I'll do that, and then we'll break into small groups. But please know that the reason I stuck around at DMC as an attendee is that there's a respect for agency in this space. What that means is that I meditated, my headspace is clear, I don't want to talk to other people. Know that that is absolutely a like good choice. You can take care of yourself however you see fit, whether that means stepping out to the kitchen area, make yourself tea instead of talking. Know that there's permission in the air. But if you do decide to stay in a small group to share your story and hear other people's story, we invite you to practice the following. Dallas Meditation Center often invite people to bow in, say name, say their share, and bow out. The reason being is that we cultivate deep listening skills, giving attention generously to one another through that format. So that's one format we encourage you to observe. And deep listening practice, meaning we give attention generously, but we also pay attention to see what's coming up for you, physical sensation, some thoughts. Disagreement is absolutely valid, but notice how that unfolds within us in this self-awareness lens. So that's another invitation. And lastly, making space for one another is a practice we would invite when we break into small group. What that means is that intuitively we have a sense of like, oh, that person didn't get to talk yet. Oh, like I've been talking, I think, quite long, given that we have to wrap up around 6:50. So we invite that awareness as part of the sharing practice. So I'll just share simply how I got here. So the talk title was How We Got Here and Why We Meditate at Dallas Meditation Center. I know there are new people. The meditate at Dallas Meditation Center part, you can push it aside and share why you meditate or why you're looking to meditate instead if you're newer to the space. So my story is that I got to Dallas Meditation Center in 2018 after having quit a PhD program in literature. I thought I was going to be an academic all my life, and that didn't work out. And I didn't have any income. It was a disruption of the whole career development that is very narrow path if you want to be an academic. So I came here seeking community after moving from Houston and not knowing how to find kindred spirit. And I was also navigating mental health crisis, severe depression, and I have ADHD diagnosed. And there was a worldview crisis in that I've had some mystical experiences that made me kind of rethink, like, what even is life? That's how I got here. And the reason I stayed at Dallas Meditation Center after trying out different spiritual communities, such as there's some churches I went to, different meditation circles. The reason I stayed is because I really resonated with interfaith tradition and Plum Village tradition that we honor here. I just like to point out and make space for our interfaith tradition that Brother Chising brought and created. Um, and a lot of attendees, long-term attendees, and donors really appreciate this culture. So I hope you'll see the rationale for it. Um, as a person who grew up in Korean Baptist tradition, there was some religious trauma that I've experienced, but I also honor that part of experience and the teachings that I've received. And Dallas Meditation Center being interfaith helped me to stick around. And this is the quote that I like to mention whenever I talk about interfaith. Why interfaith? What even is interfaith? This is a TED talk by Rabbi Ted Falcon, Pastor Don McKenzie, and Imam Jamal Rahman. They talk about interfaith dialogue leads to effective collaboration on moral issues facing the world today. So, in short, the team grows bigger if different people of different faith can come together. So that resonated with me, and Plum Village tradition resonated with me because Thich Nhat Hanh pictured with Martin Luther King Jr. In their collaboration for social justice spoke to me. For me, social justice is part of my spirituality, relieving the suffering of people that we might chant later on in the closing chant. To me, it has to be seen in action. It can't be just thought. So did that Plum Village spoke to me, and that got me to stick around. So closing my story, so you guys can share your stories if you're willing. So I came here as an attendee, confused about life, found community, and was really lucky to be considered for this leader role. And and I hope to keep fostering the culture here with awareness of why you got here, how you got here, why you're sticking around, and what you're looking for. So in that spirit, I opened this space of conversation. But reminder that sometimes talking to strangers in your cup of tea, please know that take care of yourself if that's not your practice. So here's my respect to everyone's story beforehand and your meaning making. So I'll have this on the screen just as a reminder. Um, Encouragement is bowing in, bowing out format. If you're not accustomed to that because you're newer to this space, you'll see people do that. If bowing, especially in Islam tradition, is often not resonating with their worldview, in that case, you can just raise your hand up the heart or whatever to show respect to one another. That's something that I invite people to do. Um, the reason we do this is so that we can um, kind of pull back our habit energy of often conversation being rapid and interrupting one another, which can be fun in friendly context, but here we practice deep listening. So that's the reason I invite that format. And let's make space for one another because the main intention that I invite here is heart to heart connection. And if we were to not make space for one another, it's hard to connect. So I'll keep the screen on and I would invite Corey, Reina, to a breakout room. Um, yeah. They revealed a lot about one another. I feel like even longtime friends, after being in a conversation, like, oh, like I didn't know this about you or your experience. So I don't know. I hope you enjoy the process. Yeah, so I love having this sense of like bigger community before we close. And if anybody would like to share what came up during your small groups conversation, feel free to bow or raise hands, however you feel like, to share what came up in the small group conversation. Within that intuitive also sense that maybe some of the stuff that was shared seems like it should only belong to the small group and not said out loud into the big group. With that awareness, so feel free to share what you saw, what you experienced. Um, and the floor is open. I'd love to hear.
Speak up just a little bit, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it seems like so many of us came here in a dark time and used meditation to deal with that, the uncertainty of that. And then the community and peace that meditation can bring is like a healing thing for many of us. Keep it that way.
I didn't really answer the question in a small group of why I meditate, but you know, I've found a lot of benefits, and one of the benefits that has really kept me going is I suffer from a chronic pain condition that flares up, you know, 4 or 5 times a year, and when it does, I'm just in pain for days and weeks and can't move, can't get off the couch, can't get out of bed, just extremely painful. And for years when I'd be in that state, I would be just very angry, very depressed, very anxious, very fearful, resentful, envious, jealous of people who can, you know, do things, embarrassed, ashamed, isolate myself, just want to not do anything, see anybody. But starting meditation practice helped me realize, you know, when I'm suffering, when I'm feeling the pain, it's not really the pain that's causing my suffering, it's my thoughts related to it. So if when I'm in that state, I realize that I am having these thoughts that are being harmful to myself, that are causing more pain for myself, then I can say, okay, I'm having those thoughts. I can stop having them. I can just be here, just be present. And that leads me to be able to be in pain, but still be kind or compassionate or curious or creative or helpful. So I can chop veggies while I'm lying on the couch. So I can be, I can be a good partner, I can be a good friend, even while I'm having pain. And that's, I think, directly related to practicing meditation, is noticing the thoughts, saying, okay, these thoughts are happening. I don't have to follow them. So that's been a really huge benefit for me.
Couple more shares if anybody would like.
All right.
I was just gonna say, did you guys call on me? I couldn't tell. That, you know, many of us may have studied or read books about meditation, but when that hard time hits, I think one thing that draws us to other people, besides that sense of connection, is it meditating with other people embodies it so much more than just doing it at home alone in your room. And there's also we're inspired to dig into it much deeper. So I think there's something quite different meditating with Sangha. So
Thank you, Corey. Time for maybe one more, but no arm twisting. So let's see.
And I'm going in.
Thank you, Evan.
So the thing that we were discussing was authenticity. How this center embodies authenticity, and for me, what kept me coming and keeps me coming is that we walk the walk and talk the talk, and that establishes connection, and that's why I come. That's why I stay.
If anybody's burning to share, feel free to bow now, or we will transition to announcement, and I'll take care of the announcement. All right. I think I see smiles, but I think let's wrap it up. Smile. So, in